Thank you. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, Econ Bulldog. And if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, we have a special guest in the building. You guys know him as PJ, but his full name is Pejman Kadimi, right? It is the true connoisseur, founder of Exotic Car Hacks, publisher of multiple books, and you have him one-on-one with us. So we have a special treat. Like I said, guys, stay tuned. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship, highs and lows. So, PJ, thank you very much for your time.
I
Um,
appreciate you having me.
so a lot of our viewers, um, we connected through Driven. Went to an event, high level event, and PJ was actually one of the speakers there. I don't know if it was planned, but you weren't on the schedule. And then the fact that you popped in, I was like, oh man, definitely. I've been following Exotic Car Hacks for a minute. Followed you on your page, YouTube and Instagram. So we took a picture, and what I like about you, PJ, is like even though people hate and the comments are sometimes ruthless, you're always real, right? There's no fluff in you. You're a straight shooter, and I think more people need to be like that because the social media can be like a dark place. So
Well, I
so
mean, listen, I don't live to be liked by people that I don't know, and I don't look for affirmation from people that I have no connection to. So I think a lot of people are come from a place where for them, what people think of them matters. Like they think like if I'm on social media and someone says, "Hey, you need to work out more," they go, "Oh my God, like did I post a bad picture?" Next time they're conscious of not posting a photo again. And I always say that one of the best ways you can live as a human is just live your life, and you'll attract people that appreciate who you are and always improve. So you attract even better people as you go. But don't be afraid of what and who you are, even if that baseline is not the most exciting today. Just improve it and don't worry about people's view of it. So the people that get most offended by the internet are people who don't have a path to what they want. So simply put, think of this in two regards. If you're poor and you don't have money, like poverty meaning you don't have the money to do what you want to do. I don't care that you want to buy a yacht or that you're poor and you don't have food. Bottom line is if you don't have the money you want and someone calls you poor, you get very offended by that. You get offended because you don't have a path to wealth. But if you're on your way to wealth and someone says, "Hey, you're too poor to afford this yacht," you'll be like, "Yeah, that's right. I am right now, but it doesn't mean I will be forever." Right. So you don't take offense to that because you have a path there. It's the same with fitness. If you're fat and someone says you're fat and you're not working on it, you might feel offended. But if you tell a fat guy at the gym, "Hey, you're fat," he might be like, "Well, why the fuck do you think I'm here? Why am I at the gym? Because I want to change." So there's no real, the only people that get offended when others judge them are people that aren't in control of their situation. And I think that's very important.
nice, nice. PJ, how were you in high school? Were you always that entrepreneur mindset in high school?
No, I didn't. I mean, I went to high school. I barely had a social life out of high school because I worked from a very young age of 14. So I went to school. I got out of school. I went to work. I came home at 10. I did my homework. Then I repeated the day. I had no social life, no girlfriend, no nothing. At one point in high school, I went on one date, and it was in the back of a busted ass Ford Probe that my mom owned. And I realized that I wasn't really interested in dating people in that regard since I was poor and had no means of actually having a good time. So I forfeit my social life until I was about, in my low 20s when I had earned a lot of money and I had already started working a lot of good jobs because I had such an early start. So I was very focused in high school and I never really believed in education even in high school, or I barely went to college for like 2 semesters and dropped out. So I never saw the value in these things, which is why I understood that because the value wasn't there, I would have to work 10 times harder uh, to make sure that I didn't end up a failure since I chose to not go to the formal education route.
Okay, okay. Now, and what was your first? I think you worked at a bank, right, PJ? Or
No, so my first job ever was I was a telemarketer at 14. I didn't have a green card and I figured out how to get a job, like just answering the phones and calling people to try to sell them roofs and siding. So I did that at 14, and by 16 I was the manager of that company. By 18 I was the director of that company, and by then I had a green card. So I had like a lot of service experience, I had a lot of sales experience, I had management experience, and at 18 I had the top ceiling of this small company where I worked. It was in Virginia, and it was basically selling roof siding and windows. And so after I kind of like hit 18 and I was getting out of high school, I was like, well, I got to figure out what to do because there's nowhere up to go. It's either me and the owner next, and I was like, that's not the money I want to make. But I was still making 80K a year at 18, which was a big deal back then. This was the year 2000. So it was pretty loaded for 18-year-old in 2000. And I went into banking at 18 because of that past experience I had. It was an easier transition, and I became the youngest bank manager in the US and went there and did that for a couple of years until I made it to VP level, and then got fired from banking in my early 20s, like mid to early 20s. Like I think I was like 24, 25.
So when you were in the banking world, did you open your eyes to the credit and finance?
So not really. I mean, for me, banking was I was head of a retail division, and then I headed what they call the airport project. So I created airport banking for that bank. So where we had banks inside airports. Credit was something that obviously going into banking at 18, I didn't know much about banking. I didn't know much about products and finance or anything. Part of the reason why I wanted to try banking and why I went that direction was because my dad was a CEO of a bank back in Iran when I was very young, and I never saw him past three. But I'd always heard stories that he was a banker. So I was like, maybe I have it in me to be a banker. So it was just a random kind of like spiritual thing. I was like, maybe I should go try banking. And I got really good at it. I was really good in leadership management. I was really good in sales service from my past experience. And I just don't give a shit about anything. So I'm not afraid to call people or lose a sale or whatever. So I was just like very aggressive. And I did really well. But as I worked there, it really didn't open my eyes to credit. One thing that it really opened my eyes to is how poor I was. I had clients that were like really rich, and like they were wearing 40K watches, driving 200,000 on cars. And I was like, how the fuck do they do that? Like, that's crazy. Like how does a person have a $40,000 watch on and I don't have $40,000 in my bank account? So it was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like that was like, this is like in one of the things that happens when you actually open your eyes to reality, right? That your life experience is very different than other people's. There's some people that struggle to get their next meal, right? That struggle when they go to McDonald's and they go, it's $6 versus $8. Inflation kicked in, and that changes my game, right? Like that's a big thing for some people. When you realize that there are people living a life experience significantly better than you, two things happen. Either you get really bitter, really angry that you don't have what they have. You get very like, well, I'm struggling to get a $2 meal and this guy's got a $40,000 watch on. What a piece of shit. Or, like I said, if you have a path to your own self, like you have enough self-confidence that I'll get there too, a beautiful thing happens. You start realizing that the road is very vast and there's a lot of room to grow. And so for me, because I had a path, I was already in banking at 18. I was making like 60 to 80 grand. Like I was good. I'm like, I'm still ahead. I'm not going to college, but I'm on a career path. I'm going to get promoted, all these things. So in my head, I'm like, it's only a matter of time till I get there. So the argument is, how do I get there any faster? And so one thing that happened is this was the era where real estate was really booming. This was the early 2000s, before the 2008 crash. And I realized that a lot of my clients were buying homes and doing a lot of crazy, like buying lots and selling them and flipping them. And I kind of got friends with a couple of them. I learned what they were doing, how they were doing it, and I started doing that myself. So, fast forward 5 years later, I had flipped 72 lots and I had about $3 million saved as a banker. So I had my job at the time making like 150K a year, pretty decent bonus on top of that. And I had $3 million in the bank. So, I was pretty excited that not even as an entrepreneur, as a basic, like corporate worker, I was already a millionaire driving Lamborghini. So I was like, this is great. I'm going to do that until I got fired. And then basically I had to take my money and start figuring out, how to make it work because I wasn't going to go back to corporate culture anymore.
So I know we jumped ahead real quick because you were talking about Lamborghini. At what age did you buy your first exotic?
So I've had nice cars since I was 18 because I always worked. So I would always pay, my monthly payments high because I liked cars. My first nice car was a Mercedes E55 AMG. It was at 19. Then I bought myself a Porsche 911 Turbo at 21, Ferrari Modena at 22, and my first Lamborghini, I think I was like almost 23. But I still had, when I bought my Lamborghini, I still had my Porsche and a Mercedes. So I had three epic cars. at 23.
Wow.
Then at 25, it was around 25 when I got fired. I bought my first Murcielago for 500,000, like 450K new,
So at that time, and then going into exotic car hacks, at that time, you knew specs, you knew what car to
Oh
get.
no, of course not. I wish I did. No, I would just buy. I
Okay.
was losing money like crazy on cars, right? I lost like 20 grand in 6 months on my Mercedes. My Porsche was the first car that I drove for 2 years. And I kept it for 2 years while I had other cars. And I ended up like losing 5 grand after 2 years. And I was like, that's crazy. Like how did I lose so little on the most expensive car I own? So it kind of opened my eyes to that. And then my Lamborghini made me some money. My Ferrari broke me even. So I started seeing a pattern that exotics are different than, like normal cars. And so as a banker, this is where my banker experience kicked in. I was like, let me look at the analytics of this. Let me understand the finance of this. Let me understand why this is happening. Like let me look at numbers instead of my feelings. Like I don't fuck that I want a Lamborghini. Let me take a look at why did this happen? Was it the economy? Why was I able to buy this car and sell it for more money, even though I drove it? It doesn't make sense. I've always lost money on cars. So having done that and really seeing the pattern between the Porsche, the Ferrari, and the Lamborghini, I started seeing the pattern that what made a car what I call today hackable, meaning a car you can drive for free for a duration of time. And every car I bought after that, like I went and bought an Aston Martin, I had my Murcielago, I had every 6 months I had new cars. And I was like, oh, well, now I figured out a pattern. So fast forward today, I've owned probably close to 500 cars. And I currently own like almost 40 cars. Like I have like 39 cars to my name personally, not dealer cars or anything, like my personal cars that I own at my warehouse. And I continue to collect cars. And what's actually funny is I average out today with that car collection roughly like 1.5 million in income a year just holding that collection, which is pretty exciting because I don't like sell cars. I swap out cars from the collection that I bought 2 to 3 years ago, like as I get bored, etc. And as I do that, each car makes tremendous amounts of money. And so it's a pretty exciting model to be in. I get to play with all the toys I want in my life, watches, cars, art, everything else. And I've been able to create a beautiful, not just income from it, but the ability to continue having fun without losing money, which is what I've done for the last 20 years.
When okay, so that's exciting to be able to hold to a car collection and then still make money off it. So the ones in your collection, do you drive those or those are in
Yeah.
your collection?
No, no, I drive everything. Yeah. I'm like one of those fuckers that drives everything. Like I have a Bugatti I drive. I have, like really rare, like one of 20 McLarens I drive. Like I don't care. Like if it's got four wheels and it's supposed to be driven, it's driven. I have a bunch of old cars that I liked as a child. Like when I grew up, I watched Bad Boys. Everybody wanted the black old 911 and things like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted the James Bond car from the original Pierce Brosnan days of Tomorrow Never Dies, etc. And so I bought all these cars that I wanted as a child. Those cars I don't drive because they're old and they're fucking annoying, but they're pretty to look at. So I have those on the top shelf in my collection, like undriven. Like basically I don't care to drive them. It's not that I don't like them, but I just have other cars to drive. But contrary to what most people believe, I have about like 10 hypercars, cars that are over $1 million, up to $4 million. And I drive all those fucking cars because I'm like, there's no point in not driving them. They're amazing, and what's the point of owning a $4 million car if you never take it out? So it's not just decoration, but I do drive them. But, when you have so many cars, you don't drive every car that often, because you have so many cars. So you're not like putting so many miles in every car all the time. But I also have 7 cars at the house that are like more normal cars, like Rolls Royces and Urus, like Lamborghinis, McLarens that are more drivable on a daily. So if I want to put a lot of miles on cars or stuff like that, I drive those the most.
What is your I know it's kind of hard question for you because what is your favorite car to drive? And I
So
know it's
you're gonna laugh a lot. My absolute favorite car to drive is my Rolls-Royce Phantom. As I'm an old person now, I'm 40 years old and I don't love getting in and out of cars anymore, meaning like sports cars and stuff. I have 2 cars that really are incredible cars for me that are my favorites. The Rolls-Royce Phantom by Mansory is one of my favorite builds of all time, and I adore that car. I drive it almost every day. And then the other car that I enjoy driving whenever I have any free second to go out and it's sunny because it doesn't have a roof or a windshield. It's called a McLaren Elva. It's one of 100 cars ever built in the world. It doesn't have a windshield. It doesn't have a roof. It's basically a fully open 800 horsepower McLaren that was very, very rare and hard to get. You can put two people in it. It's like driving a motorcycle. You wear bulletproof glasses so your eyes don't get hit by the bugs. And it's the most incredible driving experience of all time I've ever had. So I enjoy it a lot.
Nice. Um, I gotta look up that car, the McLaren. How much is
Yeah,
that one?
most people don't even know what it is. When I drive it on the road, everybody runs to me and they're like, "What is that? Like, what? I've never seen anything like it." I'm like, "Yeah, it's an Elva." And they're like, "I don't know what that is." I'm like, "It's okay."
One second. When was the moment that you started to make online money?
So
When?
in 2006, 7, after I left corporate America, I took 2 years basically fucking around trying to build businesses that didn't work. I thought of like I was just going the wrong path. And then I decided that one of the things I really wanted to do, regardless that I was going to make money or not, was going to be being online. So like I knew I wanted to be online. And I didn't know how because I had no technical skills. I have no coding skills. I didn't understand how to even set up a blog. So I was like, this is very confusing. And also, it was a different time then, right? It was the birth of Instagram, the early stages of Facebook. This wasn't like what it is today where everybody's online. So I was just sitting there and I was like, I really want to be online. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do online. So I was like, let me do something instead of nothing. And I said, I'm really good at like leadership, sales, and service. That's why I got so far in banking so early. Let me start writing leadership stuff on the internet. Maybe someone will read it, right? So I started a blog with the help of this 16-year-old kid that was just one of my banking client's son, who was in the car scene. And he was a techie, like he's Asian. Obviously, most Asian people are techies. So it was like, he was like, hey, I'll build this blog for you. Just give me the articles. I'll publish them. I was like, okay. And I sucked at writing because, English wasn't my first language. And I never went to school. So I never had this like, oh, you're such a good writer, like, et cetera. I was good at communicating. I wasn't good at writing, like in proper English, but I still started writing shit. And a lot of people made fun of me. They're like, this is stupid, it has typos, whatever. I was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just putting it out there. You don't want to read it, don't read it. And then I had a friend at the gym who was a really talented web designer, and he was reading my stuff. And he was like, I really like your stuff. He's like, it needs polishing, but it's really good. And I was like, okay, cool. And he was like, hey, can I join your blog? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, can I design stuff and let me just make it pretty for you? I was like, okay. And I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm not making money off of this. It doesn't matter. Like you want to make it pretty, make it pretty. So, like I told my little techie little buddy, I was like, hey, can you do what this guy's doing? He's like, no, he's like talented. He does his stuff in design and stuff. I can't do that. He's like, I can code, but I can't design like that. And I was like, okay. So I was like, you're in. And the three of us started like just basically making this blog. And we started getting some views, like people were watching and people were reading. So I was like, okay, so that's cool. So do we want to do this for free or do we want to maybe try to make money off of it? Like how do we do it? So then we started like creating an ebook and we're like, we'll sell an ebook for $5, like we'll try something. And so little by little, we just figured out how to make like an online blog without ads successful by selling product. And as we went like I was really smart when it came to sales and branding, but I wasn't smart as it pertained to sales and branding online. Like I didn't know anything about it. So I was just more like I know how the world works, and I knew my blog sucked in the sense of like getting money. So I was like, maybe I should take time and like really figure out how to brand it and like make it exciting so people want to read it. So I started really like incorporating lifestyle and showing people that like, hey, this guy has Lamborghinis and shit, and he has all this stuff, and maybe like you need to pay attention to this. So I started marketing myself better into the blog. And so as a result, like more people paid attention, and it kind of started growing. And over time, we kind of just molded stuff until one day I was really like bored and I went to one of these guys that I knew that made a video and I was like, dude, you know what we should do? We should make a really cool lifestyle trailer for the blog. And it took me like 3 months and I kind of made this lifestyle thing with this dude, and like we kind of created this little mini like trailer. And I put it up and like it got a lot of views. And I was like, holy shit, like people are like, I'm so motivated, this is so amazing. And then they were like, what's the point? Like, what's the end result of it? Like, why did I watch this? And then I was like, well, that's because we have a community about this. And then we figured out how to like, maybe we need to bring on other people like me who were successful, had cars, and wanted to share their stories. So I indirectly almost invented the podcast in like before 2010. Like before podcasting was popular, I was probably the first site on the internet that did videos and tutorials on how to become successful via video interviews like you're doing now. But this was like almost 20 years ago, like so like it's like a long time ago. And we were too early to market, but we still made a ton of money. Like we took this blog to like $4 million a year, in profit. And this was a big deal. So I was like, this is amazing. That was what was known as Secret Entourage. And then what had happened is we spent maybe 6, 7 years learning how to make 7 figures online. And then when I launched Exotic Car Hacks and Watch Trading Academy like after the fact that I did that, during the same time, I kind of figured out, wow, there's money in this. So it's not like just a joke. Like I was right to be online. And then I launched, Exotic Car Hacks and it made $1 million in his first year. Then I launched Watch Trading Academy and made $1 million in his first 6 months. And now it's easy to make $1 million in its first 10 days when I launch a new product. So, generally speaking, now, we have a portfolio of like $30 million in annual profit from just digital like sales, which is fantastic. And we still are very, very conservative in advertising. And the majority of our business comes from people just saying, I love the product. And this is such an authentic, different type of education you don't get on the internet anywhere. And, I just want to join it because my friend told me it was amazing. And then I got in, and it's amazing. So, it's worked out. And I think I attribute the success of everything we've done online to authenticity and not giving a shit, to what you said at the beginning, of this, which is I teach what I teach. Half the world will think it's retarded. Half the world will think it's, amazing. 20% of people will say it's a scam. Okay, I've been doing it for 15 years. It's fine. You still think it's a scam. It's okay. Scams usually don't last 15 years, but okay, like whatever. But the point is that, it doesn't bother me because I do what I do. And since I'm still consistently doing the car thing and the watch thing myself, nobody can really say like, oh, well, this worked 5 years ago. It doesn't work anymore. Now he's selling courses. So I'm still the perfect number one student of my own teaching, if that makes sense, all the time in everything I do. So today we have, a car course, a watch course, a travel course. We have a handbag course. We have all of these different, like luxury segment courses. We have a sales course, like how to sell luxury items to people, et cetera. So we have so many online communities and courses that we are continuously like growing the pot in informal education that is relevant to today's times. So what you learn with us is finance to the highest degree of creativity that you don't see anyone talk about because they don't understand modern asset classes. So what we're talking about is something that people aren't talking about, and we're doing it in a way so well that nobody can enter our space because we've done it so long and so well. And there's nobody richer in the space than me that's doing it, or even trying to do it. So it's like becoming an authority in the space so well that you just have zero competition and you never will.
And then one thing, I was at a conference, and Bruce Cardenas, he was one of the key players in the power Quest bar. So he helped sell it for, I think it was 3 billion cash. And he was saying to focus on your customers, not the competition. And I think that's what you've developed. You focus so much on the people that buy your product and like give them value that, there is no worry about.
So I don't have competition, not because nobody can do what we do. It's because I'm the best at it and I keep getting better at it. So, and I have a 20-year head start, right? So that's why I don't focus so much on like, who else is talking about this? I don't give a shit if someone comes out of nowhere and is like, I figured this out, I'm going to teach it. The other thing too, that I think is really important to understand is we don't have competition because we have a model that can't be duplicated. Like, because we fine-tuned it for like 20 years, we patented it, we trademarked it. And I've been very adamant about suing every single person that tries to steal it. But the final piece of it, I think I can leave you with is I'm a teacher at heart. That's also the big difference between me and other people. And a lot of people online in teaching situations are marketers who are good at bringing people to a community and marketing to them. Like, hey, here's why you need to join this community. Here's why you need to buy this course. But they're not teachers. So they're like really good at like bringing people in, but then the product lacks nuance, or the product's not updated all the time, or they have a new product every 6 months, a new idea. I've been teaching the same thing for like 15 years. Think about that. Like how good do you get if you're not how good do you get at doing it, but how good do you get at teaching it if you've been doing the same thing for 15 years, right? I've had over 100,000 students across multiple communities. So like, and these are not like, oh, we gave away all these students like $1 subscription. Like, no, these are students that have paid, thousands of dollars to be part of these communities, and they're finding incredible value, and so I think that that speaks to what we teach, and that the fact that I'm getting better at teaching it at every moment of my life.
That's amazing. I think I love to teach also, and I love to bring people together, but I think my biggest passion is waking up someone to something better. That
Mhm.
and that's what you're creating also. And those exotic car hacks, where can someone get the course? Is exoticcarhacks.com?
Yeah, it's really simple. You can go to exoticcarhacks.com, or if you want to learn more about all this stuff I'm involved in, because I have a lot of different businesses and different things and books and everything, you can go to learnfrompj.com.
I learned from pj.com. And couple, two or three more questions.
Sure.
What, PJ, what do you think your biggest loss was?
My biggest loss,
Yeah, your biggest loss as an
uh,
entrepreneur.
my heart.
Gotcha, gotcha.
You lose your heart when you look at life very logically all the time, and everything becomes about winning. So through that model, you lose a big part of what your heart is about. And I think it took me 20 years of focus to realize that. And then it took me 10 months of events to understand that. So it's a very interesting dynamic that happens. Like in order to be successful, I'm sure you heard a lot of people tell you you have to be obsessed with what we do. You have
Yes.
to be very focused. And in order to do that, you have to be able to channel out the noise, even from the people you love the most. And it makes you a certain way. So I think the highest highest cost of that is your heart. And people don't realize that until they've won, you know? And what I'm saying is, unfortunately, the other angle to this, when people tell me, oh, well, it's about life balance, they're like, I want to balance out things. Fortunately, it doesn't work that way. Like, no one who's had massive success has been able to do that while balancing their heart. I mean, look at how many failed marriages Elon Musk has. Look at how failed Jeff Bezos's marriage was until he finished and retired, and now he's happy, right? Like I'm saying, that's how it works. Like this part of your life takes such a second seat to life. It's like your focus becomes so far from that. Doesn't mean you can't have kids. Doesn't mean you can't have love in your life. Just means that your real love is what you do, and so it's very hard to share that stage with a person because it's like your own baby to begin with. So as you're growing this baby, like you're like, yeah, I'm already raising a child. And then you have a child and you're like, well, but that child doesn't matter as the other child because that other child I've already invested 20 years in. Get it? And this child is new. So your heart doesn't get divided. And a lot of people don't realize that. So that's why I've always recommended not to have significant families and everything until you've had some level of calm and success to the point where you really know that you have the opportunity for balance because you're so far ahead of everything else.
Oh, that's deep. That's deep, PJ. And like we mentioned earlier in this interview, you've wrote 12 books in total. 13.
Total.
Yeah, 12 books in total. For someone watching, which book, and I know it's more a personal, so which one do you think they should start with?
Well, they have to start with, there's only one to start with. It's called Third Circle Theory. It's my best-selling book that sold over 4 million copies now. It's a self-published book, and I think probably the most important book that I've ever put my hands on because the majority of your audience is going to be able to relate to it. It's a trilogy, so it starts with Third Circle, then Radius, then Gate of Choice. Most people will relate to Third Circle, very few to Radius and Gate of Choice. Those books were not written for the masses, they were written for the few. So once you go through Third Circle, depending on where your mental state is, you may or may not evolve past the other books. It may not be time to go through them, but Third Circle Theory is a book about human awareness and something that we don't talk about often enough. We talk about intelligence, we talk about business, we talk about skill, we talk about how to learn things, but we don't really talk about how to pay attention to things. And I think that this is one of the most important books ever written because it focuses on how to pay attention to ourselves and understand why we are how we are so we can actually change. So it's helped a lot of people, and I think it will help anyone that reads it.
Nice. It's called Third Circle Theory,
Yep.
and you get it on Amazon, right?
Anywhere you want, Audible, Amazon, in Spanish, in English, whatever you want.
I was gonna ask you that. Is it available in Spanish? That's
Yep.
amazing that you're able to, convert, make one product and then make it.
I honestly don't think it's as good in Spanish because it's you know, like translation is never accurate to one-on-one, and I don't write my books in a way that like is really focused on a story. So it's hard to tell of a mindset culturally, you know, if it's not in the language it came up in. However, it's better to have it in Spanish than not, but I would recommend reading it in English if people have a choice. I would also recommend reading it over listening to it because I know a lot of people like Audible. It is available on audio, but the audio does not have the graphics in the books. And I think the graphics in the books are very relevant, you know, to the actual story itself, to be able to understand imagery, because geometry is a big part of awareness, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Nice, nice. So one last question, PJ, and I know a lot of people are watching, right? They love exotic cars, and when it comes to cars, and doing my homework on the way you view cars, I know it's very different. You do you focus on spec and how many cars are available in that model, or it goes deeper than that? Would you say
No, it really depends on the cars. Like you can't, for example, specs don't matter to poor people. Poor people drive Huracans, R8s, Rolls-Royce Ghosts, and things like that because they're entry points to the luxury market, to the exotic market. Those kind of cars, price matters, right? Once you get to the type of cars I drive, like $1 million cars, 800K cars, 600K cars, rarer variations of those cars. Like, for example, you're not talking about a 5-year-old Rolls-Royce Ghost, but you're talking about the latest Phantom or the latest Spectre or the latest Lamborghini, like the highest trim possible, you know, the highest like Revuelto or the highest SVJ. Then specs matter because those cars are considered significant investments, right? Monetarily. So then individuality matters. Like why do we wear $200,000 watches? Why do we wear, like, I have a $500,000 watch. What does it tell the time any better than a $200,000 watch? Does it tell the time better than my phone? No, actually, the phone's more accurate. But it's a status thing, right? Like you wear these things. I don't care what kind of poor person is listening to this and goes, "Oh, you don't need a $500,000 watch." Well, when you wear a $500,000 watch, the doors that it opens for you is very different than when you wear a watch, you know, and it tells you the time. The point is, it's an entry point into a world that doesn't exist for poor people. So as you get richer in your life, you buy these things, you start to realize how much of your life you've been missing out on because you weren't in those circles. And then there's the argument from the poverty mindset. They'll tell you, well, if you need a car to be in a circle, that's not a circle you want to be in. Historically, that's because they're poor. They don't understand that trust is what brings people together, and trust is what allows people to open the door to invitation and things, right? Like you don't go inviting homeless people to red gala parties. You invite people who can wear incredible outfits, you know, like put on a show and walk the red carpet because they matter, right? Either they've done something, or they look a certain way, or they have X amount of money. And so inclusion in society, not in life, comes from social status, and that they like it or not, or that they understand it or not, that's how it works. So when you have a $1 million car, you get invited to $1 million parties. When you have a $500,000 watch, you get invited to tables where you have conversations about $200 million projects, you know, because people understand that in order to have disposably $500,000 to wear in a watch, you have to have some sort of money, like you're not broke or you're not like confused, you know, like, and you have done something. And while you can't walk around with a t-shirt that talks about your net worth, those symbols are what basically allow societal people to make a choice as to if you're invited somewhere or not. And so these things are relevant that people understand them or not.
nice, nice. One last question, PJ. now since you're known online a lot, and people come up to you and say, "Hey, how do they know you as?" Is when people come up to you, "Hey, you're that guy with the Lamborghinis, right?" Because I'm getting that now that some posts have gone viral. They're like, "Hey, you're the credit guy." What do they usually come up to you and associate that with?
So
Or
I'm known for two things. I'm either the watch and car guy, right? I'm really well known for the luxury space, for the car collection or the watch guy that teaches people how to make money trading watches. Or I'm the third circle guy, like the guy that wrote that book, because that book's impacted a lot of lives. And when I'm done with all of these online courses and stuff in the next 5 years, as I've built a lot of tech companies too on the side people don't know about. So as we exit a lot of these companies and things happen, my focus point for the next decade of my life will be in teaching third circle as a doctrine in the world out there. And so there's definitely a lot of things changing, but that I've never done what I've done on my spiritual journey for money. It's always been a supplement to what I've wanted to do. It's never been the cause of how I got rich. And part of the reason I never wanted to team the two up was because I wanted it to stay pure in the sense that I never had to compromise my authenticity and who I was and what I thought in order to market it better. Meaning, third circle theory, I remember a publisher once told me, he's like, I'll publish it and you'll make the majority of the money. Let me put a Ferrari on the cover. And I said, no, it has nothing to do with a Ferrari. He's like, well, we can sell more books. I said, I don't give a shit. And because I didn't need to sell more books at the time, right? And it became viral just because of its content, not because of a Ferrari on the cover. I was able to retain the value of what I believed it should be.
nice, nice. PJ, where can they reach you on Instagram, please?
They can reach me at I Create Millionaires. It's a really simple, catchy phrase. I and then create millionaires. And there's no hyphen or lowercase or anything. It's just all one word. So don't get spammed by fake accounts. And otherwise, I've been on Instagram since the beginning of Instagram. I'm also under my name on Facebook, but the easiest place to go again is learnfrompj.com, and you can get everything you need there. My books, my courses, or anything else you want to learn about.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, PJ, for your time. Learn from PJ.com. That exotic car hacks. If you want to start with exotic cars, and then the watch, it's called Watch Trading Academy.
Yeah, watchtradingacademy.com.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you very much, PJ. I appreciate your time. Stay tuned for more. Econ Bulldog out.